Hi, I'm Manda McKay. I'm a professional artist and I'm making these videos to give you tips to help you enhance your creativity. And this video, I want to talk about something very important, and that is not listening to anybody or anything that tells you that you are not a creative person. I actually flunked a creativity test when I was 15, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that so that you can understand why you should not be listening to even a special standardized test telling you that you are not creative. When I was 15 in the start of the school year, we had some kind of a test to take, and I don't remember a whole lot about it. It basically, each question, if we want to call it that, was just a few lines, whether at right angles or squiggly lines, and the instructions were that you were supposed to turn it into some kind of a drawing, anything that you wanted. There wasn't any other information about each of the questions. It was just turn it into a drawing of some sort, whatever strikes your fancy. And I think it was like a front and back page of paper with probably like 8 or 9 questions at least, but I only remember 2 of them. One of them was about whether it turns out it was how mechanically inclined you are, and basically it was just some lines at right angles, and if you drew something like a car engine, that apparently meant that, oh, you're very mechanically inclined. And I actually, for whatever reason, maybe I ran out of time, I don't know, but I actually left that one blank. And so when they told me later that, like, oh, you're not very mechanically inclined because you didn't draw a car engine or something, I thought, well, okay, that seems fairly accurate. But the test, the question on the test that was about creativity turned out to be where there were a couple of, there were some zigzag lines, okay, and that kind of resembled a staircase. Now, a few months before I took this test, so that would have been the beginning of the summer, I had become obsessed with the band Led Zeppelin. Prior to that, I had overheard some people talking about how the song by Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven, was the best song ever written. I had never heard it, but then a few months later, a friend played the song for me, and they didn't say what the song was or who the artist was. So I had no idea what song I was listening to, but before it even got to the vocals, I knew that that had to be Stairway to Heaven because I could tell already it was the best song ever written. So anyway, that was the beginning of my Led Zeppelin obsession. And so a few months into that, I saw this zigzag line that kind of looked like a staircase, and I thought, Stairway to Heaven, I can draw something that's a tribute to my favorite song by my favorite band. And another aspect of Led Zeppelin that really spoke to me was the Swan Song logo. Maybe a couple years earlier, somebody had graffitied on a desk this winged being, somewhat like an angel. And I didn't know what it was, but I was very intrigued by it, and the drawing spoke to me somehow. And you can't imagine how thrilled I was when I found out that that was associated with Led Zeppelin. And I went right out, and as soon as I could, I bought a shirt that had the Led Zeppelin logo, but that also had that winged being on it. And I was probably wearing that shirt when I took this test. But anyway, so I saw what looked kind of like a staircase, and I thought Stairway to Heaven, and then I thought about this winged being from the Swan Song logo, and I was like, why don't I draw this winged being ascending the staircase to heaven? And I realized that okay, yeah, that's not the most creative interpretation necessarily, but really it was about me doing a tribute to a song that I really, really liked, and then also probably showing off my drawing skills a little bit of being able to draw a very good depiction of a winged being coming up a staircase. But it turns out when I got the results back that if you drew anything other than a staircase, you apparently were a creative person. But if your drawing had something with a staircase in it, you were not at all creative. So I flunked that question and the mechanical question. And I don't remember what any of the other questions are or how well I did on them. Again, they did not tell us what each drawing was going to be about. It was just draw whatever you want. And I was a little bit disappointed since I was already an artist at that time. And I thought I was creative, and I was a little bit disappointed to find out that, well, officially, by a standardized test, I'm not at all creative. But luckily, I had enough wisdom at age 15 to notice a couple of things. And the first one is that if you're giving somebody a test and you're not telling them what you're testing them on, you're probably not going to get a very good result. If I had known that the one with the right angles had to do with mechanics and mechanical aptitude, maybe I would have drawn a car or something, I don't know. And of course, if I had been told that, like, oh, this is to see what is the most creative thing you can come up with, then I probably wouldn't have drawn that. Although who knows, maybe I would have. Like I said, I was very obsessed with Led Zeppelin at that time. But yes, this isn't accurate if you don't know what you're being tested on. How are you going to necessarily do a good job on the test? And then, of course, the other thing is that, well, maybe it's not really fair. You know, I just loved Led Zeppelin. You know, if you told somebody who was really, really into horses, like, just draw anything you want, well, they've got horses on the mind, so they're probably going to draw a horse. And that doesn't mean that they're not creative. It's just, well, you said draw whatever I like, and I like horses. So hopefully this will show you that even a standardized test is not a good way to tell whether or not you're creative. At that point, I already was technically, at age 15, a professional artist. I started selling artwork at around age 7 or 8, and was doing commissioned artwork by that point. And today, in addition to being predominantly an oil painter, I have a job that I've had for years that requires me to come up with fresh ideas on a very frequent basis, whether or not I'm inspired, whether or not I even feel well that day. I'm supposed to come up with these ideas. So I would argue that that test was very, very wrong. And I want to say that to you, that if there's anybody telling you, whether it's a friend, in quotation marks, maybe a well-meaning parent, or a standardized test, anybody that's telling you that you are not creative, do not listen to it. First of all, creativity, I think, is our natural state. If you've ever been around children and they play make-believe, they're very creative. And I'm sure whoever you are watching this, when you were a kid, you were extremely creative as well. And maybe you got it squelched out of you by people telling you stuff like, oh, you need to grow up more, or, you know, maybe you came up with something really weird and they're like, oh, that's too weird, like, there's something wrong with you. Or, you know, maybe you just weren't thinking about it and you were just distracted with other things, like, you know, your academics or whatever. So if you haven't practiced creativity, then yeah, you may feel like you're not very creative at this point. But again, I'm here to tell you that just practice with it. I talk a lot about just practicing coming up with ideas, and even if they're not good ideas, it's still helpful to you for just learning how to do this. And anybody who's telling you that you're not creative, I have to question whether they have your best interests at heart. And what agenda do they have for telling you that? And maybe you should get to the bottom of that, but at the very least, just don't listen to them. Just practice with it, and you will be able to unlock all sorts of creativity that you didn't even realize that you had. So I really hope that you find this video and my other videos helpful in becoming more creative. If you did find this helpful, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Again, my name is Manda McKay, and thank you so much for watching.